Welcome to another edition of the Gadget Show. We're here to bring you some very exciting news that you just cannot miss at all. Who's bringing you this news? Of course, it's the one and only gadget expert, Raman.
Hi, Usman.
How are you?
I'm good.
And
I'm quite excited.
You seem to be very excited that you did not want anyone to miss out on this particular piece of amazing news.
Well, I think you can make out, keeping in mind I've got all 32 out. So, yes, it is exciting times because we were waiting on this big news to come in from Apple. And I think that is what we'll dwell into in today's, show.
For those of you who don't know, who may have not been catching up with the newspapers, etc., we're talking about Apple has officially confirmed the launch of the iPad 3 or iPad HD. I think it's got various names. And there seems to be a knock-on effect already. One of the things that I was looking at, it was only 2 days ago I was thinking of buying an iPad myself, Raman. And I was thinking, I was looking around for the best price. But now, after the launch of the iPad 3, it seems to, the confirmed launch of the iPad 3, it seems to have already started a reduction in the iPad 2.
That is correct.
Which is good for me.
I think that is what is, that is what we get to see in new launches. So the new product which comes up moves the product which is already there, knocks it down, and obviously to get rid of stocks, or for other various reasons, they try and promote the new product and they drop the price. I think the key thing that we are looking at here is what they've done is, if some of us have seen the presentation from Tim Cook yesterday, what it brings out is 3-4 things. And obviously what we are going to keep our discussion around, if I may say for the benefit of audiences who are watching us, will be that we are talking about post-PC era. We are talking about, in terms of devices apart from PC. So when you look at, tablets in general, there were in excess of, 70 odd million tablets which were shipped last year. These are estimates, by different agencies, iSupply, Gartner, IDC, and in and around 70 million. If you look at that chunk, 55 million of those were actually shipped by Apple. So what we do see as a main thing happening is that you had Microsoft and Intel dominating the PC side of things, but when you move to tablets, what you're really seeing in the market is that Apple is in control, is in full control. And they have over 70% market share. So the closest rival to them is basically Samsung when you look at the Galaxy Tab. And the key things that they are doing in this industry are going to have, far-reaching implications for all of us, maybe our kids, to be honest. And let me put it this way: my daughter, she knows more on iPad than my wife. Let me put it this way. Wow. So that speaks a lot. A 2-year-old knows more. And if you remember one of the interesting things that we shared on the show was that one of the research firms did a study between BlackBerry, Android-based phones and Apple phones. And what they did was they gave out different phones to 25 different kids. The first thing the kids did was a swipe on the screen.
I can actually confirm that because my nephew, he's just under 18 months old, and he's been watching, obviously, us with our iPhones. He will immediately he'll pick up the phone, he'll press the home button, then he will swipe the screen.
There you go.
And he's 18 months old, and this is.
This is the most amazing thing about tablets in general. So what we do realize is that, apart from on the back of that announcement, they shared a lot of golden nuggets. And, some of the golden pieces of news which we don't get from a company that's secretive like Apple was that, 76% of their revenues are coming in from iDevices, iPod, iPhone, iPad. In about 2 years, they've not only redefined the category, the iPads, but what they've also done is they've taken a lot of market share and they're getting a lot of revenue on the back of it. So within 2 years, you've seen 3 quick succession of launches, which is very unlike Apple. That is very common of companies when you look at LG, Samsung, and Sony. What they will do is they will launch a lot of products and they will then wait for that products to stick on with consumers. But in this case, what has happened is a company which is very well known in the market, but a very small player in the PC market, has basically launched something and has occupied the whole pie. And the key thing to note there again, which I point out, is that what they've done is they've done it in a way wherein the competitors are far, far behind. So tablets, we have a lot of offerings from Playbook, Samsung Galaxy Tab, we have Asus, We have different form factors from different other manufacturers, but the clear consumer choice when it comes to user experience. Everybody uses the term user experience, and one of the things that they did, there were smartphones around. Nokia was probably the market leader at that point in time, but the kind of experience that the iPhone gave started persuading the customers to go into that direction, and that is what is to be seen in this particular trend, that in post-PC era, tablets will dominate, and in that, as of now, you have Apple dominating. But there are a lot of other launches which have happened from Nook, from Amazon Kindle Fire, you have Samsung, BlackBerry, all that, but nobody's coming closer. And yesterday, again, with the launch of the iPad 3, as they're calling it, I think there's a bit of a confusion. I don't know whether they call it the iPad 3 or the HT, as you've rightly said. But what we do get to see is that they have redefined two things. If you look at the resolution of TV currently, you get HD resolution, which is 1080 pixels. But when you look at the Retina or better than Retina display on the iPad, what they've done is they've taken it a notch higher than that. So on a small screen, the way they've compacted that technology and given you that resolution is really brilliant. And the other thing which I would really point out, which is what is making Apple a runaway success with us consumers, is the fact that they have an ecosystem behind it. So you've got the app world or the app universe around it, wherein you have every type of application available. Whether it's game, any category that you pick up, there are lots of apps available.
So almost anything you can think of
is available.
You think of something that you may need, even if it's only once you may need it in your life, there is definitely an app for that.
App for that, yes. So on the back of it, when you look at last episode, we basically covered Mobile World Congress. Mobile World Congress as an event, as the name signifies, is the biggest mobile event which happens in Europe. And every company is there. But when you look at the announcements which happened, there were not many very announcements in that. You had this coming out, that upgrade coming out. And surprisingly, last year, when you look at the contrast, you had the big announcements like the application store from Microsoft and RIM and Apple itself. And when you look at this year, I just feel that the show just went past.
Yeah.
You had no big news coming in. I would say that, we were expecting a lot of things in the iPad. We were expecting near-field communication. We were looking at, things like a virtual or a holographic keyboard, or at least the Bluetooth keyboard working officially with the iPad. But some of these things, they've, kind of shied away from that. It is slowly and gradually, I think, they're looking at launching things and just keeping the market warm, making sure consumers are buying their products. And it's a very good strategy which they're doing. And I think everybody is just on the back foot as far as Apple is concerned.
When they made the announcement, I didn't read it in full detail, have they said what new features are going to be on there, or they just confirmed that it's a new one coming out?
Well, essentially, if you look at the whole presentation, there were 5 big new features coming out. So what they've done is, the first thing is a quad-core processor. So basically, the processing power has been increased, and that gets to play out when you're playing games, you're using graphics application, things like that. The second important thing is the camera. So they have a front-facing and a back-facing camera, and the back-facing camera is now 5 megapixel. So that is the same camera which has the same mechanics as the iPhone 4S. So it gives you frame-by-frame, capture rate with illumination, everything that works on the iPad. The third big thing was HD recording. So that camera is capable of recording in 1080p,
wow,
30 frames per second, and you can record live, HD. The fourth thing which came out in that list is the inclusion of LTE, long-term evolution, or as we call it, the 4G. So the Wi-Fi speeds are going to be a bit better, and obviously you will get to see that played out when people buy the 3G, 4G versions of that. And that is going to be shipping from 16th March. So in the US or in some of the other countries like UK, we will see that shipping already, ready with the iPad. I don't know what the 5th feature was, but I might have to look. So there were 5 big things.
I read, obviously, there was an interview with a company. You will obviously, if I tell you, you'd probably understand a bit more. That there's a company based in, I think it's in Scandinavia somewhere,
yep,
which work with haptics.
Yes.
So they confirmed, this company, they had an interview and they said,
yeah,
they're working with a company which is in California.
Yeah.
They didn't give any details, but obviously this company, they have haptics. So normally you've got a screen, you can, you'll just touch it or you'll swipe it. But this particular technology, if you're looking at a picture of something with a straight edge and you put your finger along it, you will feel the edge of
yes,
this thing. So that's one of the rumors that I read, that I think it's the company called Semseg. Something like that. So basically, they're based in Scandinavia. They've confirmed that they're working with a company in California. They've not said who it is, where it is, but it seems to point towards that this technology may be implemented. So what do you think? Is this the technology of the future?
Well, it is in a way, because when you're looking at working with people, when people with visual, I would say visual impairment, people who cannot see or would want some sort of a response and feedback. Haptic is basically, if I and explain that in layman terms, is basically a technology which gives you do an action and it gives you some sort of a response. So on the screen, when you touch, you get certain sort of a movement on that screen. And that is what is haptics. And I think that has been there as a technology with BlackBerry. BlackBerry Bold was the first one when it came out. You have it in Samsung Galaxy Tab and a couple of others.
But I think
they've embraced it now.
gives you a sensation of sort of, like contours and things like that. So they've taken it's sort of an advanced sort of technology.
Maybe. I think officially they list these 3-4 things. I'm not too sure about that, but we will confirm that on our website, obviously, when we include some details on that.
So iPad 3, obviously this is one of the big stories that are out there. If it's something that you're interested in, keep an eye out. Obviously Apple like to keep certain things hidden away. They don't like to tell you the full details, probably because of competition really. You don't want to tell, if you've got a product which is coming out and you're going to say, right, it's going to have this, this and this, you don't want to give your competitors a sort of a head start. You'd rather release the product and then the competitors trying to catch up. I totally agree.
Surprisingly, there are 2 or 3 things which they have not covered in the presentation. If you look at the minute details, the new iPad is going to be slightly thicker and slightly heavier.
Oh, okay. Something that they've kind of just brushed aside.
Brushed that aside. So you look at that, and I think it's about 0.37 inches or something like that. So it's in some millimeters more thicker, and obviously about 50-60 grams more heavier. So 618, I think, if I remember correctly, versus 670. Which is not a big thing, but this is something they've not highlighted. So those of us who are comparing that, what they've done is they put in the same battery on 4G, will give you the same 10-hour backup. And I think it's because of that's the reason why you see a slight increase in weight. But it will be interesting to note how competitors, the closest one like Samsung, when they react and they bring out a new offering, because we were expecting things like, I don't know, if people were keeping track of this date, they were looking at things like the home button disappearing because of this haptic thing coming in. They were looking at things like holographic keyboard coming in. They were looking at maybe an SD card slot or a memory card slot coming in the iPad, so expansion of memory. Some of us, and I was one of them, was expecting a 128 gig version coming out. Because when you can record live, when you say 1080p high definition video, you are basically looking at more storage. So 64 gigs still, and that if you have used a camera on the iPhone 4 or 4S, you quickly realize that if you do a couple of hours of footage and you have a lot of photos on it, it straight away starts filling up your space because you've got apps and a couple of other things. So all in all, they've done something not very exciting, but obviously building up to the expectation. People were expecting a new release. They've done that, and it'll be good to see what they have planned for June, and probably just before Christmas, September, October timeframe. So,
is this something that you're gonna looking into investing in?
I can't. I know
you like to keep up with your technology.
I know. I'm not going to be. If you ask me honestly, people who've had iPad 2s or they've had iPad, the initial one, they will probably upgrade. But the ones who have got iPad 2 probably might not be, looking at getting an upgrade because of 2 things. I don't see that, oomph thing, or I don't feel that urge, because I've seen the iPad 2. I don't think a camera, a faster processor, and the eyesight camera and other applications will persuade me to buy a new iPad. I don't think so. Yeah, screen resolution is fine, absolutely great, but I'm not. It's again personal choice. Yeah. If you download a lot of movies from iTunes and that universe, you can hook it up to a TV, and then you can watch that on a big television, and you get the brilliant resolution that you can get. But there are other things like which are already there in the market, which are at a lower cost, give you the same functionality, give or take here or there, and are better value for money. But I would still say they maintain the premium positioning. They've not dropped the prices, which a lot of consumers were expecting that they will drop prices this time.
Right, so that's everything that we know so far about the iPad 3. As soon as we get any more information, etc., we will bring it to you. And obviously, if we get hold of one, we'll give you a live demo. But that's all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. And we will be back next week, same time, with loads and loads of things that are going on in the world, the latest in technology, and obviously our gadget expert here to answer any of your questions. That's all we've got. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.